So my first question really would be, how do you see the birds progressing from this point? Have you seen birds all around the world, yourself, your own stud, birds in the UK? How do you see us moving forward? What's the next step?
Oh, I don't know too good the English birds, but I can talk about continental birds.
Okay, yeah.
Or I can talk about my birds. The first few years I tried to make them bigger, larger, more feather, or everything bigger. But about 15 years ago I realized that I'm going too far. There are also a few birds at the show here that are interesting but over the top, too much feather, and the feather looks like this, and I try to make my birds shorter again, smaller, less feathers.
Pulling them back.
Pulling them back, yeah. That's what many people cannot understand. It's always bigger, 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 wider, wider, wider. But they cannot fly anymore, and in Europe, I don't know whether it's the same here, artificial insemination is a big theme. And for me, it's the complete wrong way. If we create a bird, a creature that cannot breed naturally anymore, I think we're on the wrong way.
Yeah.
And if you always make them bigger and bigger and bigger, and they cannot mate anymore, it's completely silly, I think. I think we have a responsibility. In Switzerland or also in Germany, there are very strong animal health protection. No, animal protection.
Yeah.
I don't know the English word. And I think if they realize that artificial insemination is done often, and if they realize that many of the birds cannot properly see anymore, or they cannot properly fly anymore, or many studs. I also have birds that sit on the floor, but I try to keep 60-70% or 80% that they really on the floor. Not on the floor, on the perches.
Yeah.
And there are studs where 90% of the birds are on the floor, and they cannot fly. And I think that's no good at all.
Do you think we're inbreeding a sort of a bird that is so far different to what a bird can be, because it's supposed to fly, let's face it? Therefore, vigour will become better if it flies, condition will be better, feather will be better.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Obviously in this country artificial insemination's banned, so no one uses it here in this country at all. And I'm sure it must be banned in Germany and all that, or in Europe.
Is it officially banned?
Yes.
Yeah.
The Budgerigar Society has outlawed it.
Well, you cannot ban something that you cannot control.
Absolutely, yeah.
But
but going back to the birds themselves, do you think people have become obsessed with just the bit above the mask? They don't look at the whole bird and the shape and the size and deportment generally?
Yeah, on the continent the birds look quite... There are also a few big puffy birds here, but you see on the continent you see much more birds like that. Here you have more stylish birds that are still having shape. And I like something in between. I don't like them too big, too buffy, and I like... in England you see many birds that have so much blow that you can see from sidewards the feathers. You can see through.
Yeah.
I think it still
There's
should
not the density through the cap.
It should still be dense. And if the feather length is too long, the spots are also sometimes not nice anymore. And here I saw a few very nice birds that. I'm wondering how the judges will decide. I have a few birds in my mind that, if I would judge, would go for best in show. But also on the continent, still the judges are going for the big puffy birds. They talk everywhere in seminars. They always talk, go for stylish birds, go for complete bird. But at the end of the day, it's always the big puffy bird.
Yeah.
And as long as it is like this, they will try to breed big puffy birds because they have more chance to win. But I think many, also now at the European show, we had many birds, also at the WBO show in Belgium. Many of the winner birds, for me, they are too big, too buffy, not enough style. And I think it's mainly the judges that should give the direction where to go. If the stylish birds are winning, people will breed them more, and as long as the big puffy birds are winning, people will try to breed them. But to answer your question, I think at least on the continent, we and also myself, we went too far, and we have to go backwards.
Yeah.
And I mean, if you watch the birds from the 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000, 2010. There you can see a huge progress, but it cannot go on like this. It's impossible. I think we have to go back and create something. That's not possible.
No.
You have to go a little bit backwards and breed. I think we should go back to birds that are able to fly. I can tell you on many birds here which ones can fly and which ones cannot fly. And the wings and tails are too long; they cannot fly.
And therefore, do you feel that leads to feather problems? Because vigor's not there, the ring problems. You know, they're not exercising their feet because they're not perching and moving around more. That's the direct correlation then to people having birds that are not in condition and not breeding properly.
Exactly.
So you're losing then families because of that, aren't you?
Exactly.
Yeah. So you feel that really bringing the birds back to a smaller, more typier,
more vigor.
Yeah.
And able to fly.
Yeah.
And for me, fertility is very important. Hens that just lay 2-3 eggs, I don't continue. I like hens that lay 6, 7, 8 eggs.
Yeah.
And get 4 or 5 chicks in a round.
And feed them.
Yeah, that's something else. Yeah. On the continent, many people are using foster pairings. Yeah. These are the same that are using or making artificial insemination. And I think I leave also my show winners, they are having babies and they're feeding them, and then it's a second round and then it's a third round, and then I change the hen. But they always feed their chicks. So, I mean, imagine that what happens to you if you always get chicks and they're taken away. I think they got mad, and it's no good. It's against nature.
In the last few years, we've heard people incubate eggs and then they're crop feeding every day.
Why? It's completely silly.
It's ridiculous, isn't it?
Completely silly.
Yeah.
I'm also sure that whatever you put in with the crop feeding is first of all, it's against nature, and secondly, what you put in is not as good as what the parents would give them. And they're not learning how to
They're not learning how to feed themselves.
No.
The chicks are not learning that from the parents.
And if the birds, again, if they cannot feed their own chicks, we're doing something wrong.
Yeah.
I mean, then obviously the bird has a major fault. A bird must be able to mate, a bird must be able to lay eggs, a bird must be able to feed the chicks. And if you cannot do that, don't use it. Something's wrong.
No, I agree, totally. Yeah, that's interesting. Thank you. Does anyone else want the fluffy